Hi guys, hi ladies and gentlemen, George here. Um, what I'd like to bring to you today is a video about uh, how to complete a tax return for low-income senior citizens living in Ontario in 2022. And in part thanks to Apostolos Koutas for the comment. He said, "Hi George, can you show us the 2022? Thank you." And I can't refuse a viewer's question or request unless it's unreasonable. So this is a reasonable request and we'll do that. For 2022, UFile Online, here you have it. I already created an account and entered some information. And this return is based on a scenario where we have two low-income taxpayers, pensioners, that only have a portion of the old age security. They're 70 years old, and they're going to take advantage of a couple of credits that Ontario is so kind enough to give to seniors. So I started by clearly identifying my principal taxpayer. You can be either spouse. Decide upon which one um, uh, you you would like to. If you're looking for convenience, and this is rather rather peculiar, but I would pick the person with the longest longevity to be the family head. Reason being is this way you can continue with the same file over and over again, um, well after the other one has passed. It's part of the reality of life. Nobody lives forever. So clearly here I indicated that I have a taxpayer by the name of Fred Barnes, and for all intents and purposes, since UFile is a do-it-yourself product, I am Fred Barnes. And Fred Barnes doesn't represent any real person. And before I go any further, this is instructional purposes only. It's not meant to be taken as investment advice. I'm neither a CPA or a lawyer. So I clearly identified Fred Barnes, his date of birth, he's living in the province of Ontario, and he's married. Now, basically, when you go to Next, once you've completed the essential information, you click on Next. Any new information you entered, once you click Next, it's saved. And by default, I pick complete information when asked how I'm going to provide the information for my spouse. And the reason why I do that is because I can have the convenience of filing both spouses from the same file, and at the same time I can be rest assured that UFile has all the information for both taxpayers. Therefore, the optimization and the sharing of credits can be done fluidly as opposed to with trial and error. Great. So I picked complete information, and then I added the spouse by clicking here the Add Spouse button. Then you need to clearly identify the address of the taxpayer, that they're living in Ontario, provide their phone number for all intents and purposes. Go next, answer on a yearly basis all the essential CRA questions. We cannot carry forward that information because CRA requires us to ask that information from each taxpayer year after year, although at times they may seem redundant. And those questions are your language of correspondence. Um, are you filing for the first time? Do you have foreign property with a cost of $100,000 or more? And that foreign property can either be abroad or in Canada. For example, shares held with foreign shares held with a Canadian broker. And the most common example of that are U.S. shares. A lot of Canadians invest in U.S. shares, common shares on the stock market, and we don't readily consider them foreign property, but in fact they are. Did you sell your principal residence? Are you exempt from Canadian tax by being a diplomat or some other reason? Then you can register with Elections Canada through your tax return. Take your tin hats off, put on a Blue Jays hat, root for them, and be sure to vote. People have fought for our right to vote. This is something new for this year in Ontario. You can consent to Share your contact information with the organ tissue donor registry. Personally, I kind of highly recommend it. That's more or less giving the gift of life. For the climate action incentive, just identify clearly if where you live, and if you live outside of a consensus metropolitan area, CMA, you basically qualify for a 10% increase in that credit. So be sure to answer this question for both spouses. And also clearly identify if you want to receive your email notifications from the CRA either by email, electronically, or by paper. I just want to circle back to identification and see, just pay particular attention to province of residence on December 31st, 2022. Now, what that question really asks you is, where were you at the end of your taxation year? Not necessarily December 31st, 2022. So if you left Ontario or you left Canada, your province of residence, uh, if you were an immigrant, meaning you left Canada, was where you resided in Canada shortly before you left, or the day that you left. Or if the taxpayer passed away, it's the province of residence that they were at on the date of death. Because if you leave Canada um, or you pass away, your province of residence will be determined not on December 31st, but either the day you left Canada or the day you passed away. Very important question to know that. It seems very minor and intuitive to answer, but it is important. And we specified here. Click uh, for each of the two lines in case of specific situations, immigrant, deceased person, and we kind of stipulated there in our help. Yeah, very important. So, clicking on these buttons gives you a wealth of information. I know we worked on it a lot, and I'm saying we because for those of you that are new to this channel, I do work for UFile. Yep. So in my particular example, I have a very simple tax return with just a portion of the old age security. And why they're receiving only a portion of the old age security? Well, it could be for two reasons. The primary reason is I'm trying to do a very simple example. But if they didn't reside in Canada for a certain amount of time, they're not going to get the full old age security. So the old age security is dependent on how many years you spent in Canada and how many years you were in Canada. And those that have a shorter stay in Canada, and you can look that up on the old age security site, will not receive their full old age security pension. Yeah, so when you go to the interview setup, you really don't even need to click this box, because if all you have is old age security pension, that input page will pop up by default. If you do have anything else out of the ordinary, like capital gains, for example, um, you need to check that box. Click on next, and everything will generate there. Once you click next, we generate other input pages if necessary, and we also save the data. Okay, now I just clicked on here, this button here, T4A OAS, this page popped up, I clicked there, and I entered 6,200 of taxable pension and $1,200 of supplements. Okay. Then the other thing that this taxpayer had was medical expenses. So what happened was Fred and Glenda went to the bingo parlor and they won a little bit over $5,000. So they spent each $2,500 on Dr. Epstein. Dr. Epstein, I remember back in the 70s, we had a sitcom called The Sweat Hogs, and there was Cool and Swab's debonair Epstein in the gang of students. So he became a doctor in my example. So here we have Dr. Epstein, $2,500 from good old Fred Barnes and Glenda Smith, and dental work for just one taxpayer. Then they also went to Prairie Sound for vacation. There you go. So this is a new Ontario tax credit, the Ontario Staycation Tax Credit. And basically you get it by clicking on other deductions and credits and then clicking on the plus sign here, you get the staycation credit. And at the same page, I also entered the seniors public transit credit. So here they spent actually $1,500 on a hotel from the 1st of July to the 15th of July, and they stayed at 18 Queens Street, Parry Sound, Ontario. I don't think that exists. I don't think there is a Queen Street in Parry Sound. But if there is, let me know. And here is your HSD number of the facility. You should clearly indicate it so you don't uh, get questioned by the CRA. Is where is the tax you paid? Blah blah blah. Okay. And of course, they spend $1,200 on their yearly passing transit pass for Ottawa. I love to take the bus. It's always a joy and a ride, especially here in Quebec. You get a free back massage while you're going. People in the bus go up and down. People in the bus go up and down. That type of thing. Excellent stuff. Yeah, creativity. Once we put the Blue Jays hat on, let me tell you. All right. So that's all there is for that taxpayer. We added the spouse by clicking on the Add Spouse button, and then we had gone to Linda Smith and entered, of course, her personal information, date of birth, social insurance number, name properly done. And at times, the CRA might not have the right information, so you got to set them straight. I've seen it all, and she has the same address as the spouse, but a different phone number. Everybody has their own cell number these days. And then again, we answer all her CRA questions properly. Okay, and entered her pension income, and she has slightly more than the husband, but that's all good. And of course, her medical expenses. So on August 8th, 2022, she also went to Dr. Epstein and paid $1,200. So they had $5,000 of medical expenses and spent $1,500 on a staycation around beautiful Ontario. Who in their right mind wouldn't do that? And that's all she wrote. And with that said, if we go to review, I hope you guys can hear me. Yeah, you can. Okay, we see that there is a beautiful tax credit of $1,674. And under messages, uh, pretty much everything should be okay. I don't see anything um, out of the ordinary. And then we can go to tax return. There, I switch to Fred. And what I like to do in terms of a quick review is go over the summary with the spouse. And if you done the returns 2 years in a row, you would get a comparative summary. So just by checking the 2 year summary, you can see if you've missed anything, right? And then you can go to the summary with spouse, and you can see each spouse side by side, so you can compare. See, Linda had slightly higher old age security than the spouse, and overall, their net family income is under $20,000, and this is why my return here generated for free. If the family income is less than $20,000, bingo, you've won a free tax return with ufile.ca. And here you have the basic amounts, and the amounts are transferred from one spouse to the other, and you got a provincial territorial tax credits to the tune of $1,674.50 on line 47900 of his return. And the average and marginal tax rates are all zero, not taxable. So let's get to the crux of the matter. First and foremost, if you're mailing the return, you got to mail the condensed form only, which has a barcode on it that the CRA can scan and get the information all at once. And I think you can basically read this barcode with your iPhone scanner, which is great. And let's get to the Ontario credits. that she's entitled to. So here's the staycation credit, which is 20% of 1,500, comes up to $400. Then enter the medical expenses on line 58769 of your Ontario 428, and you get a quarter of that back. And here's the Ontario Public Transit credit, which is 15% of the amount that you paid, for a total of $1,674.50. The Ontario Safety Home credit, that's if you did some sizable renovations. I'll briefly touch on that later on. And here's the Ontario Seniors Property Tax Credit. And that reminds me of a little page that I forgot to mention as to how I completed it. And that's pretty simple. If we go into Fred Barnes' interview, what we do is uh, basically go to uh, go to Ontario Tax Credits, click on ON Ben right here, boom. And then also, depending on whether you are a homeowner or a tenant, you need to identify your home information here, either the information on your property tax bill or the information with respect to who is your landlord and how much rent you pay. I went into uh, homeowner and entered all the information about my principal residence and how much property tax I paid. And I also did the ON Ben application from start to finish. Very simple questions, answer yes or no. And that's all she wrote. And there is no involuntary preparation. And that's all I did in order to um, generate a return here. And your last step, of course, once you reviewed your tax return, and pretend that we looked at every page, you go to Net File, and it's actually your second to last page. And we're ready to file Fred. For Glenda Smith, we're not ready. And that's because we have a little error that we have to correct. And basically, once I click on that link, it takes me to here. And I will click again, drill down, and then go to here. And it's asking you if the taxable income is nil. For all intents and purposes, although it's above zero, she's not taxable, and you can just answer yes. Okay. Yes, again. Click on next. That will save that information. And if I go to Net File, now both are ready to file. And I will not click on these links, ready for filing, because ultimately the return will be sent. So pretending I did, it should take me to federal submission, and you have to click on I agree and then click on file my return. And once you've done everything successfully, you look at the acknowledgement report and you can print it. Okay? You should print your acknowledgement report, also go back to tax return, and download a PDF copy for each taxpayer by clicking download PDF or federal return. And then once you're done that, you go to the little gear menu here, save and close. Okay? So let's do a quick overview. You need to enter your data from the interview page, review your messages, review your tax return, okay? Then go to NetFile, go through that menu and make sure you get an acknowledgement, okay? Then go back to tax return, download a PDF for your records, save and close. I promised you a quick overview of the Ontario tax credits. And basically, what you need to do if you want a quick synopsis of a quick summary of all your Ontario credits is go to page 34 of your Ontario guide, which you can get from the CRA. I'll post a link to it. And you'll see here that they're phasing out the low-income individual for individuals' family tax credit. Um, they introduced a new child care expense tax credit. They extended the Ontario Seniors Home Safety Tax Credit. There's a new refundable Ontario Jobs Training Tax Credit and a temporary refundable Ontario Staycation Tax Credit, which I showed you how to do, and a refundable Ontario Seniors Care at Home Tax Credit, which is a portion of your medical expenses, which I demonstrated in this video. So all that said and done, for more details, check out our YouTube channel at ufile.ca or on YouTube, and you'll get more details, I'm sure of it. I don't want to steal my colleague's thunder. And that's pretty much it. One last note, if we go back to tax return and go on save and close, here you'll see something in French. It could be because I had started in French, or it could be because my browser is changing from between French or English. But the best way, if you're bilingual and you prefer to work in either language, the only way you should be changing your language is by clicking on English or French at the ufile.ca menu, not through your browser translation. So everything should work well. With that said, I bid you guys a good tax season. I hope this video was helpful to each and every one of you. That's the reason why I work in this field. I enjoy helping many people as possible. So, with that said, have a great tax season and thank you for supporting my channel. Take care.